In this video, we are going to break down the 7 steps it takes to become a helicopter pilot.
That's like autopilot, dude.
How do you fly a helicopter? Well, I'm going to show you.
We'll break it down into like 2 areas. If you just want to become a private pilot, go fly helicopters, maybe fly with your family, getting your private pilot's rating. Then we'll kind of continue on and we'll talk about what you have to do to go get your commercial pilot's license and how to become a professional in the industry. So the first step to becoming a helicopter pilot is getting your FAA medical. There's kind of 2 aspects to this. I would recommend this as your first course of action to do, because if you cannot get a medical, there's no purpose in saving the money going through flight school if you can't fly. So go get your medical first. They're going to check and make sure that you don't have any conditions that are going to kind of hold you back. So how you do this, there's 2 steps. You're going to go on medexpress.com, and it's an online application portal to put in all of your health data. Now, there's quite a bit of data they want, and they want all of your health history. They are going to examine your health history pretty in depth. They want to see any problems that you've had, surgeries, medical conditions, medications you've been on. So just be very conscientious about what you're putting into this, because they're going to look at it. After that, you're going to go book an appointment with an AME. We call these people AMEs. They're called Aviation Medical Examiners. These are the people that issue pilots medical certificates. To be a pilot, you have to have a medical certificate. Just a quick point, there are 3 classes of medical certificate. There's a first class, which is the highest class, commercial pilots. Second class is the next class. You can also have a second class as a commercial pilot. And then there's third class, which is, you can't work as a commercial pilot with your third class, but you can fly privately. The second part about becoming a helicopter pilot is figure out your financing. It is no surprise that becoming a helicopter pilot is extremely expensive. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can self-finance, or you can get loans. That is down here on the bottom. You can either get federal or private loans, or you can pay as you go or cash flow it. Let's talk about the prices. If you're only getting your private pilot's license, that's gonna cost you anywhere from, on the low end, probably $20,000, on the high end to $40,000, or it could be even more. I know it's a big range. You're gonna have to figure out what your school charges. You may need extra time, so that may cost extra. You may do add-on things, so that could cost extra. So the range could be super high. If you do it really efficiently and you're very quick and you pick it up quick, maybe you do it faster. Maybe it's closer to the $20,000. If you were going to go all in, if you want to get your private pilot's license, your commercial pilot's license, you want to become a flight instructor so that you can teach, if you want to get your IFR rating so you can fly in the clouds, if you want to get your CFII so you can teach people how to fly in the clouds, this is expensive. This is a lot of training, a lot of flight hours. This can cost anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000. I think I spent about $110,000, $115,000. So it was pretty expensive. Maybe it's a little bit more these days. So you need to figure out how you're going to pay for this. Step 3 is picking the right flight school. Now, I wrote down here on the bottom, choose wisely. Your school shapes your career, and it really kind of does. It's not the biggest deal. It's not like the name of the school really matters, but what you get taught and how you fly does matter. So you want to try to go to a reputable school, a school that works for you, but that is going to teach you the right things, how to be a good, safe, professional pilot. So when you're thinking about choosing a school, there's a couple factors to consider: the location and weather. And then I say right after that, will you need to move? Likely the school, a good school that's going to provide everything that you need, might not be close to you. For most of the people I know, they had to move to the school. So you may have to move. Where's the location and the weather? If you're flying in a really cold and snowy climate, I work in upstate New York, there's schools here. Sometimes you have to contend with snow and very strong winds. Maybe you want to fly somewhere where it's a little bit, you got better weather, maybe Florida, California, the West Coast. I went to flight school in Hawaii. We had really good weather there. So these are things you need to consider. Financing options. Maybe the school you go to has some loan options. You need to think about that. You need to ask them about their fleet and maintenance. Do they have well-maintained helicopters? Go tour the school. You're about to spend tens of thousands of dollars at this school, so the least they can do is show you around their facilities, show you around their classrooms, show you around their maintenance bays. You can go look at the helicopters. Do they look clean? Do they look well maintained? It's immediately clear when you walk into a flight school if they've got a good maintenance program and their helicopters are maintained well or they're not. You're going to know right away. It's not hard to figure out. Another question to ask is the availability. Are there quite a few instructors? How many instructors are there? How many helicopters are there? How busy is the program? There's a ton of students and not that many helicopters. You're going to be fighting for flight hours. It's going to be hard to find areas on the schedule. If there's not a lot of flight instructors, not a lot of helicopters, you're not going to get a lot of flight time, and this process is going to take a long time. Cost transparency. Is there any hidden fees? Some schools will just tell you, you want your private pilot? It's going to be real close to this. Some will say it's very dependent, which is true, but you want to really narrow down, maybe sit down with the finance person, the chief flight instructor, the chief pilot, maybe the owner of the school, and say, how much is this going to cost me? I really want to know. So get a really good upfront cost for multiple different schools that you're considering. And then the last thing I would look at, there's plenty more, but the last thing I wrote here is their safety record. Have they had any accidents? If they've had an accident, that is not a deal breaker. Accidents do happen. They're called an accident. They weren't intended to happen. Pretty much every flight school of decent size has had an accident. That's like a given. You want to know what caused that accident. Was it just a student pilot who kind of messed up something and got confused, or was it a maintenance related issue? Is it something that the school did? You want to know these things. So finding a school is really challenging, but it's really important. The next step is to earn your private pilot's license. This is the first step. If you just want to get your private, you're pretty much done after this. If you want to continue on, this is just the first step. Getting your private pilot's license, you're going to learn things in ground school and flight school. This education, these are the two things. In ground school, you're going to learn a bunch of concepts: aerodynamics, FAA regulations, weather, radio comms, aircraft systems, more. In flight training, you're going to learn basic maneuvers, emergencies. Then once you're qualified, you're going to go solo. You're going to go on cross-country, long flights. You're going to go on night flights. To become a private pilot, the FAA requires 40 hours of flight time, mixed in with like different things: nighttime, cross-country time, solo time. In my experience as a flight instructor, most people need anywhere from about 40 to 70. So maybe you should budget conservatively. Maybe you should budget for 55, 60 hours, and then you have a more realistic budget. Step 5. Pass the check ride. There are 2 sections to a check ride. There is an oral exam, and then there is a flight test. The oral portion of the check ride, you're going to go in and you're going to sit with what's called a DPE, a designated pilot examiner, and he or she is going to ask you a ton of questions about everything we just talked about, all the stuff you're learning: weather, emergencies, aircraft procedures, performance, specifications of your aircraft, legalities, regulations, everything that it takes to become a helicopter pilot. It's a ton. The second portion is, if you make it through that, you're going to go out to the helicopter, you're going to do your pre-flight, and then you're going to fly with a DPE. And the designated pilot examiner is going to say, all right, Devin, we're going to go do this maneuver. Can you show me a normal approach? Can you show me a steep approach? Can you show me a hovering auto rotation? Can you show me a straight-in auto rotation, a 180-degree auto rotation, a pinnacle landing? All of the different maneuvers you're going to have to go do. If at any point you miss a maneuver and it's outside of the practical test standards, the practical test standards is an FAA document that states what it takes to become a pilot for each rating. And then there's certain specifications and parameters that you have to be in on your check ride. So when you do an auto rotation, you have to get it to a certain spot. You can't let your heading change. So there's certain parameters. If you do a maneuver and you fall outside of those parameters, you're going to fail your check ride. If you don't, and you pass your oral portion and your flight portion, congratulations, you are a private pilot. If you fail a maneuver, you have to go back with your instructor, retrain the maneuver, re-get competent, and then you can go and take the check ride again. That can happen on either the oral portion or the flight portion. If you just wanted to get your private pilot's license, at this point you are done. Congratulations, you are a helicopter pilot. If you want to continue on the process, we'll finish up here. Step 6 is earning advanced licenses. To fly professionally, you need a couple of these. So the first one is your commercial pilot's license. You have to have your commercial pilot's license if you want to get paid to fly, so that would be the next step in the process. The next potential license that you could get is your CFI, or your Certified Flight Instructor. This is a common first job to build hours. When you graduate flight school or get your commercial pilot's license, you have about 150 to 200 hours. That's not a lot of hours, and most jobs will not hire you to fly their helicopters. They want a minimum of like 250 to 500 hours to really do that job. So how do you bridge the gap from 150 to 200 hours when you graduate up to the higher hours that companies really want? There's a couple ways. The best way is to become a CFI, a certified flight instructor. You can teach people how to fly helicopters and you're building all this flight time. So maybe you want to go get your certified flight instructor license. The next rating that you might want to get if you want to become a commercial helicopter and get paid to fly is your instrument rating. Pretty much any of the high-level helicopter pilot jobs that you might think of, helicopter EMS, flying charters. There's certain jobs like maybe long lining would not require, or utility work maybe would not require an instrument rating, but they might. But pretty much everyone wants you to have your instrument rating. What this does is it allows you to fly the helicopter solely based off the instruments and flying in bad weather, in clouds, in rain, low visibility. So I really implore you to go get your instrument rating. It's a great rating to have. And then the last rating you might want to get is your Certified Flight Instructor Instrument Rating, CFII. This is an additional rating to teach people how to fly in bad weather, fly in those instrument conditions that we talked about. So these are all different ratings that you might go on to get. I got all of these. It was a long process, but it was very beneficial. Each one of these requires additional types of training, requirements like we talked about in the practical test standards, and each one of them requires an additional check ride. Finally, the last step is getting your first pilot job. If you got your flight instructor rating, you can go become a flight instructor. That's a very in-demand position. You're likely to find a job relatively easily. Once you have a little bit of time, maybe you can find a tour pilot position. These are very popular in Hawaii, the Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, Florida, California, New York City. These jobs typically want you to have higher numbers, like anywhere from like 500 to 1,000. And then when you're really flying a big turbine helicopter for tours, they want you to have anywhere from like 800 to 1,500 hours to really do that job. You could go do survey work or utility work, flying, doing power line inspections, photography. These jobs also want you to have higher numbers of hours. So this is your first pilot job, and then after that, after you build up more time, 1,500 hours, 2,000 hours, you can go on and do all of the really, really, really cool stuff. The helicopter EMS, law enforcement, offshore oil, all the cool helicopter stuff, search and rescue, that kind of stuff. So those are the 7 steps to become a helicopter pilot. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button. If you have any questions and you want to ask me personally about your situation, connect with me on Minnect down below in the comments. You can ask me personal questions. I'll get back to you, give you my advice, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.